Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name's Tobin Broadfoot, and I'm the product director here at Keyless. And I'm joined by Francisco Martins and David Birch again. And this is part two of our series on digital identity and decentralized biometrics. In part one, we tried to cover the kind of the what and the why, like what does that really mean and why does it matter? I'll do a quick summary of that as well. But today we're going to look into the actual practical applications of how this technology is impacting banking and how it can help. We're going to cover payment use cases, high-risk transactions, and changes of personal details. And then finally, finish on account recovery. There'll be time for questions. So if you do have questions, please put those in the chat. If we don't get time to cover them all, apologies, but we'll try and follow up on every single one. So please do let us know. And I will start with quick reintroductions for those who weren't on the first of the series. So, David, if you could introduce yourself and then pass over to Frank.
Sure, I'm Dave Birch. I'm an author, advisor, and commentator on digital financial services, and obviously I have a particular interest in the balance, let's say, of security and privacy in those spaces. Frank.
Hello, I'm Frank Martins, a sales director of Keyless, in charge of the UK market and a few other regions. And I'll be very glad to speak today with Dave, illustrating how we can help in those use cases.
Lovely. And we've moved to Frank and Dave terms already after that. You guys have known each other for a long time, so it's all good. Listen, so first time around, we talked about, firstly, I think David did a great job of kind of laying out that hacks happen and personal identity information being available in these large honeypots is a real problem, and it's a problem in the individual cases that David cited, but also for us as an industry as a whole. It really matters on the kind of the fabric of trust across the identity landscape. We talked then about the approaches to decentralized systems and how important things like secure multi-party computation and zero-knowledge biometrics are. David did a great job of them sort of bring us back into the real world of why that matters. There's more privacy, it's compliant, and it's easier for users as well. Questions came up about why is that any different for Face ID, and we handled that it's all about that kind of genuine identity assurance and bringing it back to the real individual. It's there as a recording if you want to add anything now, David.
Well, I do think, just as a sort of marker for starting the discussion here, I do think we should sort of re-emphasize just a little bit because I want to make sure people understand quite how important the combinations of technologies is. And I mean two things by that statement. I mean, first of all, Keyless haven't invented some crazy new stuff. What Keyless have done is taken tried and tested cryptographic techniques. You mentioned secure multi-party computation, zero knowledge proofs, and put them together in an interesting and very practical way. And I want to get that point over. These are tried and tested techniques. Sometimes they may sound a little like witchcraft. It does seem odd that you can store the data but not read it, etc., etc. But let's just take that on trust. The second thing is the implications of that, I hope, were not lost on the people that were listening last week, because what it meant was if I'm giving my face or voice, whatever, this is face, to, in this case, a bank, neither, agents of foreign powers, dedicated hackers, or corrupt employees, who I think in our examples were all called Tobin, oddly, none of these miscreants, even if they get hold of the data, can actually violate my privacy. They cannot reconstruct. And that's a really important point that, not even the bank can do this. So I just wanted to reiterate that first point. It's sometimes it sounds a little implausible that all of this works, but it actually does, and it's building on tried and tested techniques. So that's the key point to get over. I think what I'd like to do now is sort of move the conversation on to talk more about what we can do with that. And once that's in place, and again, stressing this is not hypothetical, we're talking about, and we'll be using examples from your actual implementations of this with actual banks. But
yes,
but if I challenge you, I mean, you're the product guy, Tobin, so let me challenge you to sort of, can you just give me sort of 2 or 3 ways in which we can use this, and then we'll ask Frank about how those actually play out. So I've got this fantastic technology, it works. What do I do with it?
Yeah, perfect. So I think the first one that we're going to deal with is payments, and the key thing that it allows you to do is to achieve that kind of holy grail in the industry of multi-factor authentication, but through a single glance, right? So the key of all of it is that it isn't witchcraft and wizardry, as you say, but also that users just do it, right? They just and in this case they just show their face. We've cryptographically transformed the biometric template and bound that to the device initially, and then when they go to make a payment, screen flashes up just as it does in Face ID, and that is useful for us because people are very used to that technology.
Yeah, I mean, customers are used to the, and in particular, customers are used to the convenience of that. Yeah,
exactly. And actually, they're never going to care that it's different from Face ID, as I said at the top, because it's actually verifying you back to the original person that enrolled. And then that completes the payment. But it allows you, and Frank's even better placed, I think, to talk about this. It then allows the bank to have proof of identity that was carried out on that payment as well. So
Frank, can you just talk me through that user journey then? So, all of a sudden I need to pay, I don't know, some bill or something. So suddenly I've got to log into the bank and I've got to transfer £1,000 or something.
Yeah.
Take me through the actual user journey.
Sure. So the user journey, regardless, as you mentioned, of the payment type, the outbound payment type, has to be compliant with some regulation. So if it's above certain amount, it falls under PSD2 strong customer authentication, which requires double factor, 2 out of the 3 factors. So we have knowledge factor, what you know, possession factor, what you have, like a bank card or a phone, a device, and what you are, your biometrics. Traditionally, these 2 factors have been, banks have been complying with them via knowledge factor. You put your PIN and you already have the device, which opens for a lot of issues because users can simply, after making the payment, they can try to dispute it. They can try to create what we call first-party fraud, which has been a huge issue for banks, especially here in the UK. So what we're doing to tackle that, we're actually bringing inherence, the proper inherence factor to the table. So with one flow, it feels like Face ID, but it's actually the same picture from the KYC process. So we're actually bridging that gap from the KYC to the actual transaction with just one look at the camera, proving the device, plus the face. And more beautifully, we have already embedded the dynamic linking element. So all the transaction, all the trail can be used by the bank to dispute transactions. So it's helping banks to stop inside or first party fraud on top of account takeover fraud.
And just to be clear, this matching of the face with the face on, I mean, you haven't actually got the face stored back at the bank. What you've got is a biometric template of that face, but that biometric template has been processed in such a way that it's been sharded, I think is the word that they. So it's not that there's a picture of my face sitting there somewhere. There's an algorithm that will match the stored, broken up, scattered, secure template against the template from the phone.
It's actually we transform the face instead of doing the sharding, splitting the values. We actually transform the face. We transform the face into a cryptographic key, and we actually mix that cryptographic key, that value, that quantity, with an asymmetric key based on the device quantities. So we mix face and device, transform into zero knowledge, and create a randomized cryptographic key. So which doesn't leave the device, Dave. So on the server side, we're able to match the encrypted patterns without decrypting, and it's impossible to reverse engineer. So in the end, we provide like a double factor with one look at the camera, and we're helping banks to work better on disputed transactions. But as you mentioned, it can sound like witchcraft. Although we are pioneers in this tech, it's already proven technology. But the beauty of this type of process is how much banks save. Is the operational efficiency, because when banks don't have proper assurance, digital assurance at the transactional level, what happens? It can happen that they will block the transaction. And once this happens, a call will be made to their call center or an SMS OTP. So it will open the gates of hell for fraud, even though it's increasing their cost. So they already paying a
Well,
lot.
it's also a way. I mean, because this has happened to me a couple of times recently, where you go to make a transaction and the bank blocks it, and I understand why, because they have to be sensitive to the amount of fraud that's going on. But it is annoying for the customer, but of course it's also costly. Me phoning up the call center and talking to someone is a waste of money as well as my time. So I wasn't going to go to questions quite so early on because I wanted to get a couple more use cases first. But one of the questions that are coming in on the channel here, it's popped up right away to ask about the hardware. So I think what the questioner is saying is, it's all very well talking about zero knowledge proof being tried and tested, which it is. And I know we're glossing over a few things here because there's lots of different kinds of, well, what exactly do you mean by, zero knowledge proof? Is it a Z case, and all this kind of thing. But can you just answer that sort of broad question? The current smartphones that we have right now, they are powerful enough to run this technology, right?
Absolutely, Dave. So the only thing we need is a phone with at least 720 pixel camera. So pretty much all the phones in the last, I don't know, 5-6 years have them. So they're all compliant with what's required. And that's why, it's been a great success because it's very easily deployable. There's no need for extra hardware. Everybody has their phone already as a possession factor. They've been banking with the phone. And as you mentioned before, everybody's used to doing Face ID. So for them, it will feel just like Face ID. But the picture is actually being compared against the original picture they opened the account. That's very important to bring to attention because this is about proving the device plus the face. So we're actually providing continuous authentication, continuous digital assurance on the transactional level.
Yeah. So the payments use case is quite straightforward. It's easy for the customer. Give me another example, Tobin. Where does it make? Let's just say, I mean, I can see why that's important, but I think there are other use cases which actually make more of a difference to the way banks work at the moment. So what are a couple of other use cases?
Thanks, David. So just to summarize, so on payment, we said it's there for when you're at the moment of making the payment, multi-factor authentication, easy for customers. Call up the bank. And it's a similar story again for when we talk about things like changing sensitive data. So going right from the start of these, I've just changed the address. Okay.
Hey, you know why that's a great example?
Yeah.
That just happened to me today. Because and I won't say it wasn't a bank, it was a payment services provider, but it's precisely what happened to me today because I wanted to change which account I was sending some of the money was sweeping into. And so then I had to log back in, via, but it was interesting. That's a really simple example. I go and change something. I should just look at the bank app and confirm it, right?
Exactly. Was it easy to change, like, for example, when you need to change an email, a phone number?
It wasn't difficult, but it was time consuming. And also I had to go back and log back in again, which, and actually it did have a slight problem as well, because on one of the things I typed in Dave Birch as the account name. I typed in Dave Birch. And in the PSP account, it was David Birch. So I had to go back and change that as well. But that's a really good live example. Thank you, Tobin. Okay, so Frank, talk me through the journey here. I want to go and change my email address or something like that. I mean, this is what fraudsters get people to do all the time. So this needs to be rock solid. Take me through the user journey.
That's a very important one because if you change your address and you start receiving your post in a different address, users can then provoke first-party fraud. They can make payments and say, look, something happened here, something's changed, it wasn't me. So if the bank is using a knowledge factor, PIN, password to do that, it can be a huge issue because it's going to be very difficult to prove the contrary that the user is suggesting. So what we're doing here, it's a kit that will allow the user to do like PIN recovery when you forget your PIN, or when you want to change, like she got married, she needs to include her new last name, or change of address or phone number, whatever the case may be. Once the person clicks to do that type of transaction, he or she will be prompted to take a selfie And in that selfie, we're going to be actually doing device recognition, and we're going to be checking the face again, both simultaneously. So the level of assurance is very robust. So it's yeah.
So you know for certain it's me and not the guy that grabbed my phone and ran off with it.
Correct. It's not only about device authentication, it's both device and the person behind the screen.
And I think it's worth just like spelling out why sometimes it feels difficult for a user. Like that's you were edging towards that, David. Like that's a big risk for the financial institution, right? Because it could be redirecting important mail. It can be all part of the fraudster process, and that's why those processes end up with a lot of layers on them, because it's a lot of risk for the bank. So it's not just trying to be difficult, but where we feel we come in and do a great job is to make that incredibly easy, but deliver a really high level of assurance that that's you. You've just shown your face on a trusted device.
Yeah. I mean, that's a significant step up in security without any any decrease in consumer convenience. So that kind of interests me. Just before we go to the next one, I just want to take another one of the questions that's come in here. And I realize we didn't cover this actually, but it's a really good question. So Frank, does it make any difference whether I've gone and registered at the bank or whether I've registered remotely? I mean, what are the journeys? If I go into the bank branch, what do I do?
So if you go into the bank branch, what we're going to do is that you're going to provide a document, a state issued document. It could be your driving license, your passport. There's a photo in there. There's a picture. All we need is that we have another product called IDV Bridge. It's a patented solution.
Right.
We can actually extract silently. Like I love talking about this product. We can actually extract the photo silently backend to backend and create our zero knowledge cryptographic key based on that already onboarded face. And then the user is simply prompted to authenticate. So without needing to re-onboard.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I realized we hadn't covered that when we were talking about it before. So I can be onboarded via the phone or in the branch, and it doesn't make any difference to subsequent interactions.
Doesn't make any difference. I mean, this is one way. The other way is that we just collect the face again. So, for example, let's imagine the picture of the document is not very good, or the bank for some reason wants the face to be recollected. So the user is just prompted to recollect the face, which takes a few seconds. So the re-onboarding, the face re-onboarding process end to end is less than a minute. It's not like re-KYCing the person.
So you made me think of something else now, Toby, because that example, I know I use that example because it happened to me. My phone got stolen, this kind of thing. So it's one thing about changing personal data and that kind of thing, but the other thing that we really want to guard against is, account takeover. What we really don't want is this whole thing where the fraudster calls up and says, "Oh, hi, I'm Dave, but I dropped my phone down the toilet, blah, blah, blah." So that's a crucial user journey. So can you talk me through that in a little more detail, please, Frank?
I get excited.
So I call up, and actually, in this case, I really am Dave, and I really did drop my phone down the toilet. So I call up the bank with my new phone. How do you help?
So you don't need to call the bank. Let's start by like that. So before I explain how it works, I'd like to point out that around 5 to 10% of any bank clientele or financial institution, they will need some sort of account recovery capability on a yearly basis. And that's very interesting to take into account because banks, financial institutions, they spend a lot of money acquiring new customer with KYC, which is an expensive, heavily regulated process. And you acquiring customers, you don't want to lose them. You want to create retention. So when they change their phone, when they lose their phone or forget all the information they have and they need to reconnect the account, if you make it too difficult, you're going to lose clients. If you make it too easy, you're going to have a lot of fraud. So account recovery is a very important use case, and I think we have cracked it with greatness because we have created a self-service account recovery capability where the user simply gets a new phone, downloads the banking app, and click on account recovery, and they just put their email. They don't even need to remember their password. And via face biometrics, we can reinstall the account, recreate the account, reconnect the account, and after that, we do the device binding again. we create the possession factor based on the phone elements again. So that's interesting to know, because on the account recovery, if you lose the phone and one cryptographic key is based on the phone alone, we cannot count on that, but we can regenerate it. So based on face biometrics, we regenerate it, recreate the cryptographic key, also based on elements the bank have. Of course, they need to be comfortable that the person is in the same geolocation, using the phone the same way. So we're able to recreate the cryptographic key, the device key pair, as we say, and then the double factor are there already installed. So the user can simply retransact, start transacting again, making payments, whatever the case may be.
I mean, that's interesting, because that takes something that could be kind of painful for the customer and turns it into an opportunity for the institution to actually surprise the customer in a way. With that's quite good.
And I myself, Dave, I'm a crypto enthusiast, and I have many accounts with many different trading platforms. Two of them, it's been months that I cannot recuperate my account. They made it so difficult, and I'm such a busy guy. In the end, you just stop using the platform. So
yeah, it's true, because eventually you get to the button that says, can you send us a copy of your driving license? Or that.
I did it many times for one without citing names, a few document checks. It cost them money. It annoyed me, and I didn't get anywhere.
So now we understand the technology. Now we understand the user journeys. And I can see another question out the corner of my. So we're solving several different issues together here. So it's Dave, it's Dave's phone, Dave is recovering the account, blah blah blah. Tell me how it's worked in practice, because I know you already have customers using this, and you don't have to give away any trade secrets or anything like this, but I am very curious to know how those new user journeys have made an impact on the bank in practice, on banks in practice. So can you give me a couple of real examples of what difference it makes? This is the retail banks.
Retail banks. So let's focus on a recent client of ours that went live last year. They're just using the technology for a few months, but we already have some very interesting stats. So it's a tier 1 bank from the European Union. We were able to reduce account takeover fraud in around 77% using our technology, primarily for payments, for all the use cases we just mentioned. And apart from that, I think the biggest thing that they were very happy is that just to manage each fraud case, they estimate a cost of €1,000, just to go through the management process, and sometimes it's disputed transactions, whatever the case may be. So it's not only the fraud laws, you have to manage that. And on top of that, Dave, I think one of the biggest things that we don't usually talk too much, but we should, is operational efficiency. Every time you allow the transaction to happen because it brings certainty, you reduce call centers, SMS, OTP, telco related costs and call center costs. And we're doing this with greatness, again, reducing it around 80 to 90%. I think we can say we could even make SMS, OTP obsolete. Sometimes it's good to augment in a journey just for the sake of it. Some banks like doing it, but it's not needed anymore. So operational.
I feel more strongly than that, Frank. I mean, it not only is it not needed anymore, it's borderline negligent that they're allowed to still do it, because this is precise. One of the key vectors for the fraudsters is they grab the stolen phone, they do the and then they watch the OTP come up on the because people don't turn off the display of the text messages when they come in. So the fraudsters just look for the one-time password.
It should be prohibited. It should not only non-compliant. They should mandate, stop using this. It's a very old protocol. It's expensive. It costs money, generates fraud, doesn't get anywhere. So we're helping our clients reduce drastically the cost of a call center, SMS, OTP, fraud of all sorts, around 70 to 80%. From this bank, we got 77% as a number, so they're extremely happy. But I think that the main thing is the user experience, because it feels natural. It feels like Face ID. It feels good. It feels normal. It's not something new, something they need to master, to learn. And people, they are used to do what they are used to do. So I think that's one of the the outcomes that happen naturally as well.
So I wonder if so you're talking here about not margin, this isn't like a 5 or 10% difference. I mean, this is a really radical change. And to go back to my point at the beginning, at no decrease in customer, in fact, an increase in customer convenience, the customers are getting increased security and increased privacy. But the bank is seeing a pretty substantial return here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The return on investment is amazing because they're improving the user experience. They're not requiring any PIN or password. Unless it's a fallback. Let's imagine the camera is broken, by regulation, you need to have a fallback. But you're improving the journey, you're decreasing fraud costs and operational costs. But most importantly, Dave, it's about reputational risk as well. People like to work with financial institutions they trust, and reputation is huge here. It's a very important topic, not only the money, the financial aspects, but we need to remember that a brand reputation in finance is as important as the products they offer.
Yeah, and actually, as your account recovery example illustrated, if you get these kind of things right, then consumers don't see them as more friction, consumers will accept more security, but they'll be delighted.
It results in retention, as we can see. They've been telling us that we used to be losing clients on this proportion every year after installing keyless. We're not seeing like all these clients go. And again, it costs them money to acquire those clients. Let's make sure they stay.
Yeah. Now, so I'm going to come back to Tobin in a minute because we do need to. Sorry, I've sidetracked Frank with all the, but we do at some point need to.
It's all good there. It's good stuff.
But I just want to ask because I can see in the questions again here another sort of interesting point, which, as you'll know from some of my other activities, I kind of agree with this questioner, which is it's one thing to use these new identity technologies to reduce costs, increase efficiency, and all this kind of thing. And you seem to have done that pretty successfully. Of course, the next step would then be for the bank to use these kind of opportunities to start generating revenue in new areas and delivering new services. So I wonder if perhaps, next time we come back round to see how some of your guys are doing, I'd be really curious to see some of the new services they're offering with it to their customers, as well as the sort of cost reduction and that they're getting themselves. So just wanted to flag that up because I think the question has got a good point, which is if you get this right, it turns into revenue for the bank, not just cost reduction. I'm sorry, I sidetracked you again, Tobin.
No, not at all. I was just gonna anything banks obsess over this, and I used to work at one. It's when we're talking about these high friction processes that we've talked about, whether it be payments, changing PII, account recovery on a new device, they are really aware of the impact of those poor experiences and the one-star app store reviews and all of those things. So I do think they are aware of the potential revenue opportunities as well as savings on call centers and avoiding those fraud losses that Frank talked us through. So we are approaching a time. Yet again, the 30 minutes has flown by. I want to give it's all good. I mean, I just want to give you both the opportunity actually just to do a final kind of summary. I guess let's start with Frank actually. Kind of what would you like to be the takeaways, and then David, I'll kind of go over to you as to kind of what you've learned over these.
Sure. I think the takeaway, Tobin, again, in payments is compliance, ease of use, and a lot less fraud. But the generic takeaway again is retention, is decrease of operational costs, and making your clients happy. It costs you money to acquire them. Let's ensure they stay. So I think that would be my takeaways.
Thanks. And David, what have you learned over these last two sessions?
Well, I can easily leave you with my three sort of key points, Tobin, because and this all goes back to the reason I was interested in keyless in the first place, which is because it isn't witchcraft, it isn't magic, it is tried and tested technology, but the way you guys have put it together delivers something really practical into the marketplace. So the first point is it's technology that works. The second point is it is very simple for consumers. It doesn't require them to learn anything new or do anything different, or do, and you know, we can't underestimate how important that is. You're changing consumer behavior is very complex, especially for something that they see as just boring friction because they don't care about the security. So the simplicity, I think, is really. But the third point, of course, is it in practice, as Frank has just mentioned, it makes pretty significant reductions in fraud and in cost. You know, this isn't like a nice to have 5-10% around the edges. This is a fundamental improvement in the way that retail financial institutions can interact with their customers. And so, yeah, it reinforces all the reasons I was interested in you guys to begin with. But and anyway, and thank you again for inviting me along for the conversation. It's just so fascinating to talk about this stuff.
Well, your time, Frank. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, and then the biggest thank you of all is that people came and listened to the three of us talk, because it wouldn't have been much use if it was just us three talking. So thank you everyone who's joined both the first part and second part today. We're honestly really grateful. And thank you to the questions that came in. I thought they were really insightful and triggered us to move into different angles. If you have more questions, just let us know. If you want to get in touch,
just get in touch.
Yeah, just get in touch. And yeah, there'll be a recording afterwards. And I wish everyone a wonderful rest of the day and rest of the week. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.